Ochoyo sampo pagyo trashipa tuche tempe chile yarngoda Pande lame shabla solvade Omo aguru Uta varda nishri badra varsa munya sarva siddhi hum Oma guru vajra Shasane karma uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Oma guru vajra Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Oma guru vajra dara sumati munisha sane kar Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Dagi Je Tsong Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sunge Nawa Tsedu So Tsechi Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Ila Sambe Dede Malupa Gemel Hungi Drubra Chingi Tsoni Sodan Dikdun Shape Tse Dungi Namke Yinsu Lekshune Lapchen Tsoni Yonsu Tsopa Dan Chera Nyedun Chanwara Chingelo Jancho Parge Ninsen Tukun Tu Nyu Peme Siudro Lekshune Jancho Drube Gegen Kunshi Shi Tungen Dela Drubra Chingelo Dagi Lona Chela Chokpa Dan Chemin Samjur Ngemba Chedan Tumbe Dedun Malu Bemel Hungi Drubra Chingelo Dorna Tingne Tsera Tamche Dan Techi Pardu Neka Tamche Rese Kyamne Lama Kele Me Tukche Chingi Dala Sikso So Gongyab Drewe Nyamta Dacha Je Tsong Lame Tuche Rab Gongne Kudan Sungi Nawa Dralme Tu Nyamso Nyongwe Kesan Toprasho Kewa kundu yanda lama dan rame chiki pela longche chi sadan lamge yenten rabzo ne nyur tobe shoya pakyu ke kudan dagi lo pakyu ke sungdan dagi nga pakyu ke tukdan dagi ye ten yerme chiktu Chingi lo ma kyu ke kuda ma kyu ke sundan da ge nga Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Muni Svoha. Buongiorno.
Good morning. Today we continue with the teachings of the graduated path to enlightenment, the stages of the path. And to begin, we'll start with traditional prayers that are done. Prayer is not really the right word because we're not praying in the sense of asking or requesting. The translation that more correct would be aspirational prayers. So Lam Rim. So it would be the path of aspiration. It's where we're directing our mind. And in this specific case, we are directing our mind to connect with the first part. First, we recite the Heart Sutra, where we connect with Buddha Shakyamuni, the fact that all phenomenon exist in an interdependent way. And this first moment, then at a certain point, we clap our hands 3 times. And just in a few words, we're trying to imagine that any interference that there is, to be able to understand the teachings well, to have the correct presence, any kind of any kind of inner interference. I mean, external interferences can be there as well, but they deserve us less. But the inner interference would be fear, distraction, sleepiness, doubt, many inner distractions that keep us from understanding well, or maybe we understand but we're not able to apply these teachings, bring it from our head to our heart. So when we clap our hands 3 times, just in a few words, the meaning is to eliminate any kind of interference that there might be, to be able to listen and understand and gradually realize the path. So these interferences are eliminated. And then the next part, we ask for blessings to all the masters of the lineage from whom these teachings come. So we begin with Buddha Shakyamuni, and then it goes gradually to Atisha, and then Lama Je Tsong Khapa, and then one by one there is a very precise, uninterrupted lineage. This lineage that arrives all the way to us. And then the formal request for teachings is the offering of the mandala, because traditionally there's a very simple rule. One should not teach if he's not asked. One can't go around, oh, you need to understand this. You shouldn't teach to someone who hasn't asked. And this is resolved, let's say, because nobody's forced to be here. At least I hope it's like that. And that comes already by your presence here, but formally we make this request for the teachings through the mandala offering, and then there's the motivation, the generation of the motivation, and we're going to talk about that more today. And today I won't be able to be here in the afternoon because I need to serve one of my gurus, Kyabshe Chizhan Rinpoche. I translate for him, and he's in the United States, and so when he gives teachings, I teach from Tibetan into English, and there are people who are physically present there, and I do this online. It's LamRim teachings too, but he in America. In Vermont, it's the morning there when it's the afternoon here. So I'm able to give teachings this morning, and then in the afternoon I'll start teaching. I'll start translating for him. It'll be the morning, and I'll go on translating until late in the evening. So now we begin with the Heart Sutra. I don't want to. We have only this morning, so I don't want to spend too much time on any kind of introduction.
Chancho sembe gendun chenpo dan taba chikdu shu te ye tse chumden de samu nawa she jawe chege namdrange tinge zinla nyombra shu yan te ye tse chancho semba chenpo paba chenre zi wanjo sherage paru tu chimba sam cheba nila nambra tashi pumbo ngabo teda lai Rāng shīngi tōmbā nāmbrā tāo tēne sāngi gi tū tsēdān tēmbā shārī pū Jancho semba semba chembo paba cherezi wanjo la dike che me so. Rigi pu kangla la shiragi paru tu jimba samo cheba chepra deba te jitra labra cha dike che me ba. Jancho semba semba chembo paba cherezi wanjo ki tsedan demba shara tati pul. Dike che me so shari pu rigi puan rigi pu mo kangla la shiragi paru tu jimba sam cheba chepra deba te didra nambra tawra chat pumbo ngabo te da kyan ran shingi tomba nambra yandabra jesu tao so tomba o tomba ni so so Sule tomba ni shema yin, tomba ni le kya su shema yin no. Teshin tu tsorwa dan, dushe dan, duche dan, nambra sheba nama tomba wo shari. Dara che tamche tomba ni de tseni meba ma keba ma gak. Trima meba trima dan, trawa triwa meba kanwa meba wo. Sharipu teta vena tomba nila su me tsorwa me dushe me duche na me nambra sheba me ming me nawa me na me che me lu me yi su me dra me tri me ro me rikcha me che me to migi kam me ba ne Yigi kame yigi nambra shebe kamge pardo yang me to marikpa seba me ba ne gashi sebe pardo yang teshin tu dunge wadang kunjung wadang gokpa dang la me yeshe me toba me mato payang me to sharipo tetawe na janchu semba nam toba me bechir Sheragi parutu jimbala tenjing nete semla dripa mechin trapa met chinchi lole shindu dene nyange lede be tar chinto tu sondo nambra shube sangye tamche kya sheragi parutu jimbala ten Lana mepa yanda pra zobe chanchu tu ngombra zobra sangye so te tawe na Sheragi parutu chimbe nga rikpa chimbe nga lana mepe nga nyambe nga dunga tamche raptu shivra chebe nga mizumpe na dembra shebra chade Sheragi parutu chimbe nga me paya tayata gate gate para sam gate bodhi swaha sharipu chanchu semba semba chembo deda sheragi parutu jimba samola labra chao tene chumdende tinge zin tele shente chanchu semba semba chem Papa cherezi wanjola lekso she jawa chingne lekso rigipu tete shino rigipu tete shinte chitra kyogi temba shindu sheragi parudu jimba samola meche barachat deshin sheba namkya chesu yirango chumden degi dige che ka tsene tsedan dembash Pudan chanchu semba semba chimbo papa cherezi wanjoda Tam chedan dembe kor teda dan Lada midan lama yinda trisara chebe jigne irante Chumden degi sumba lang umbra do Kala chebe neje tamba na Ngushe zudru ngawe tudoba chem Druba pola maye pushin si Nesung kandro tsola cha lo Aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza Akasamaranza shatara samaraya petayata gate gate para samgat bodhi soha pa kuncho sumki kai dembe topki chir do para gyurche me para gyurche shi para gyurche Drage parje mitumbe chore tamche shante kuro yeso ha gere tongra geju shiwa dan midun nebe kendan chewa dan tumba drupchen punsu tsogyur trashi de kyan tendir dele sho.
We visualize that from Buddha Shakyamuni, gradually up until our own root guru, each of them come to this place and gradually, and they come towards our crown, and they absorb into our crown towards our heart.
Lama Rinpoche dagi chiburo pede tenshu la kadrin chimbu gone jesonte kuson togi ngodro tsedo so kuson togi ngodro tsedo so dremba nyame temba chumdende gyatsa tamba jetsu mi bangwen gyawe lungten pakpa tome sha sangye chansen sumla solwa de sangye sowa de zamlin kebe tsuge yigi nye ume lamnye pakpa namdru de tebe chumba namdru de jikde miche sumla sowa de jikde mikche sumla sowa de mechung otsra ne gyuro chogi de samo lamgi gyuchan tawe de lapchen chube tergyo namnanze drove tsala sumla solwa de drove tsala sumla solwa de lamcho sherchin geze sersan sha gyawe menga kunse kusali drogun tsewe jinsen gewa chen drove tepun sumla solwa de drove tepun sumla solwa de chancho tula nganye serlim pa shinda chimbo senzi marmesha lapsan setse temba rinpoche temba sokzin sumla sowa de temba sokzin sumla mawa dame drenjo shake to gyawe kera kundu chambe yang samu tunse pakcho ludru sha mawe tsugen sumla sowa de mawe tsugen sumla pakpe gomba setse dawa tra tese tuwo rikpe kuchung che gyase rikpe kuchung nipe sha rikpe wangcho sumla solwa de rikpe wangcho sumla sowa de tenre samo chishin sikpa yi shinda chimbe setse marme ze lamsa setse tumba rimbo che zamling gingyur nila solwa de zamling gingyur nila sowa de neljuro wancho palden komba pa samu tinzin tembe neusuru pa dube denu kundu tama pa tako drume sumla sowa de tako drume sumla sowa de tsumbe druba lule namse sha tambe jinla namka gyabo dang jikden choge pangbe senge sang gyase sangbe shabla sowa Shabla solwa de chancho toge drogun pushin se lakbe lhaye jeson chinge lap nikdo drowa drembe shake cho kanyen gyatsen shabla sowa de namka gyansen shabla solwa de gyawe dumso shenyen potawa namcho drenda drame sharawa chancho toge kabawa chekawa Drove rekun sumla solwa de, drove rekun sumla solwa de. Lundo ngada chanse chilbo pa, time lunge wangjo kebe cho. Kemsun drove gombo rimbo che, neden chimbo sumla solwa de. Neden chimbo sumla. Namda tsuldrim dange sangchen pa, duwa bumde ngada tsona pa. Chungu gyatso tursa mendra pa drove drimba sumla solwa de drove drimba sumla sowa de sabjin gyache chola nganye pe kalden drova kunge kyabgyur tinle sambo temba geze pa panden lame shabla solwa de panden lame shabla solwa de Drube Wangju Chimbu Tsultrin Bara Shenye Tsushin Tenze Shunubu Tekcho Lamgi Gyujang Kegum Sha Gyawe Sebo Sumla Solwa De Gyawe Sebo Sumla Sowa Mejun Yunden Zunzen Sangye Wen Tambe Chinla Namga Gyabu Dang Jigden Chege Pangbe Senge Sang Gyase Sangbe Shabla Solwa De Gyase Sangbe Shabla Chancho Toge Drogun Pushin Sel Hakbel Hai Jeson Chinge Lap Nikto Drove Drembe Shenyen Cho Namka Gyansen Shabla Solwa De Namka Gyansen Shabla Solwa De Mingme Tsewe Terchen Chenre Zi Drime Kembe Wangbe Chambe Liang Kanche Kebe Tsugen Tsongkapa Losan Trape Shabla Solwa De Losan Trape Shabla Sowa De Drube Wanjo Jambe Gyatso Dan Kedru Mawe Nima Gelepe Ningyo Dambe Zunzin Put Lama Sumla Sowa De Dame Lama Sumla Sowa De Sonjo Kunye Chogi Dorje Dan Kusung Ungiro Gyawa Ensapa Lungdo Ngada Sangye Yeshe Sha Kedru Chembo Sumla Sowa De Kedru Chembo Sumla Sowa De Losan Chogi Genzen Zimbe Je Te Tukse Kuncho Genzen Sha Lamsa Setse Losan Yeshe Te Je Tsong Lama Sumla Solwa De Je Tsong Lama Sumla Sowa De Tupten Peze Ngawan Chamba Dan Teye Tukse Losan Nyendra Sha Gyatso Tabo Yunden Taye Nga Trinchen Lama Sumla Solwa De Trinchen Lama Sumla Losan Yeshe Temba Rabge Che Lodro Tsambo Drogun Trozet Losan Gyawe Chutsu Jinge Pa Tsungme Lama Sumla Solwa De Tsungme Lama Sumla Solwa De Kelsan Namre Shibe Lungdo De Shedru Nige Zinla Datrewa Kadri Nyangme Tsawe Lama La Gosung Kuba Chimbo Solwa De Gosung Kuba Chimbo Solwa De Mangde Tambra Sharwe Kilgorge Rimni Chebe Rida Sungne Se Kesan Duche Munse Kundanye Tenzin Kedru Shabla Sowa De Tenzin Kedru Shabla Tusong Malu Dube Ko Losan Chabe Lekshe Druge Song Lapsong Gyudre Londro Gyatso Tu Tinchen Trube Kula Solwa De Tinchen Trube Kula Solwa De Jamba Tsulden Laso Pagnorge Tugyo Lekdam Galten Zimbetso Namshi Trinle Gyatso Kujen Kyun Yongya Jetsun Lamra Solwa De Yongkyab Jetsun Lamra Solwa De Losan Gyalwa Kunge Yeshe Ni Chiktu Time Galten Zimbetso Ramjan Kilkor Gyatso Trut Trinchen Lame Shabla Solwa De Trinchen Lame Shabla Solwa De Locho Sambo Pagyo Trashipa Tuche Tempe Trinle Yarngoda Pelche Drolor Zambe Zebra Chen Pande Lame Shabla Solwa De Pande De Ramja Sura Kunla Tawe Mi Kelsan Tarba Drove Jungocho Tsewe Kyebe Tapke Zeba Ye Setse Shenye Namla Solwa De Setse Shenye Namla Solwa De Pande Lama Nambra Tarba La Keche Tsamya Lokta Mike Shin Chitze Lekpara Tongwe Mugugi Lame Chinla Semla Jokpara Sho Lame Chinla Semla Jokpara Sho. Richiesta di benedizione.
The request of blessings to realize each of the steps of the graduated path to enlightenment.
Lekbra tongne beba tuma ye kuba chembe tembra chingelo kuba chembe tembra chingelo lenche nyebe dawe tensandi shindu nyeka tunchen shegyurene Ninsen kundu nimbo lembe lo, gyuche meba kewra chinge lo, gyunche mebra kewra chinge lo, luso yowa chui chubrushin, nyurdu jikpe chiwa tremba dam, shiwe jesu ludan trimashin, karna letre chishin trangwa la, ngeba tembo nyene nyebe tso, trashin trawa nam kyang pongwa dang, getso tada druba takto pakdan dembra jingelo, takto pakdan dembra jingelo, chebe mingo dunga kunge go, yite miru sibe punsogi, nimi ringne tarpe dewala, tönire chimbo kewra jingelo, tönire chimbo kewra jingelo, namda samba teye changba ye, tendan sheshin payo chimbo ye, tembe tsawa sosro tarbala, druba nimbo chebra jingelo, druba nimbro chebra jingelo, rangi sitsro longwa chishinto, magyo drowa kunkyan tetrawar, tongne drowa drolwe kurkerwe, jancho semcho jongwara jingelo, jancho semcho jongwara jingelo, semtsang kekyan tsutri namso la, komba mena jancho mit, lekbra tongne gyase dombal, tsumba chakpe lobra jingelo, tsumba chakpe lobra jingelo, lokpe yula yenwa shiche shin, yanda tunla tsushin chepa yi, shine lakton sungto drewe la, nyurto gyula kewra jingelo, nyurto gyula kewra jingelo, tumo lamja nudu gyurba na, tekpa kunge chogyo dorjete, kesan kewo jungo tamba tera, dela nitu chukpra jingelo, dela nitu chukpra jingelo, tetse ngodro namni drube shin, namda tamse dombas, chomba, Nigurane sokdan dede sungra jingelo, sokdan dede sungra jingelo, tene gyude nimbo rimnigi nenama chishin tone tsumbayi, tunshi nelchura chule miye wara, tambe sungshin drubra jingelo, tambe sungshin drubra jingelo, dedra lamsan tumbe shenyen dan tsulshin drube druna shabden ching, chidan nange pardu chöbetso, nyevra shivra chinge labdo so, nyevra shivra chinge kewa kuntu yanda lama dan, drame chiki pela longche ching, sadan lamge yunde rabzo ne, dorje change kopa nyurtobsho, dorje change kopa nyurtobsho. Offerta del mandala per richiedere di poter ricevere gli insegnamenti dell'Lam-Rim, quindi degli stadi nel sentiero graduale all'illuminazione. Sashi pöki choshi ameto Chamare rabalinga shin ni de padi sange shintu mikte Je Tsong Chinam Karatimle Cho Cho Ge Padam Lo nirya tayami. Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi dage jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi dage jinso gibe sonam ki sangye drupar sho sangye chedan soge chonam la jancho pardo dani kyapsu chi drola pinchira sangye drupar sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo yal haye ke dan ludan jin ke drubundan da mi ke nam dan drowa kunge dhanama chi tsampa tamche ke to dagi chöten to tamche ke to dagi chöten to. Buongiorno.
Hello.
Noi stessi, così come ogni fenomeno,
We, like every phenomenon,
abbiamo una caratteristica fondamentale
we have a fundamental characteristic.
che è il fatto che noi esistiamo
It's the fact that we exist
fenomeni essi
as phenomena, as beings that interact and consequently transform.
nessuno di noi
None of us,
nessuno dei nostri aspetti
in none of our characteristics can stay as they are in a fixed, immutable way, and we don't even have the possibility of not interacting and then not transforming. We are in constant transformation.
questo fatto che
This fact that we're able to interact, it's not that we can interact. We don't have a choice. We constantly interact, and we exist within a relational reality. We're not independent, autonomous, but we we exist exclusively within this relational reality, and every action, interaction brings a transformation. And this is sometimes called our pure nature. I don't know if you've ever heard the expression that we have a Buddha nature, or even some say, "Oh, we're Buddhas and we don't know it." And I've always said, if it were like this, we'd be very ignorant Buddhas, to be a Buddha without even knowing it. But what happens? Just in a few words, and like I said, I don't want to take too long. When we say we have a pure nature, pure means free from dirt. If I say, is the water pure or not pure? If I say it's pure, it's free from impurities. And when we say that our nature is pure, it's pure in the sense that it is free from impurities, some kind of dirt. That impurity would be an existence that is objective, independent, inherent, and and that's nothing special. I mean, all phenomenon exist in this way, and we'll talk about this later. But in other words, what it means is, because we interact and we exist in this relational way, because of that, it's possible to change the state in which we find ourselves. The only reason why it's possible to actually reach a state of peace and balance, the so-called Buddhahood, is because we are relational, interdependent beings. And if we interact in a certain way, we will transform in a certain way. If we transform in another way, we'll transform in that. We'll transform in that way, and this shows a very important point of free will. We aren't beings without discernment or freedom of choice, and we have this discernment, this ability to choose, even though it's actually quite limited. But within this, freedom, we do have this freedom of choice. But we, of course, we're conditioned by the information we've had, the actions that we've done in the past, all the experiences we've had in the past. We're not free from our past. Each one of us inevitably lives the present, actually conditioned by the past, by his past. But within that, there are small spaces of freedom. We can choose. We can choose between saying or not saying, doing or not doing. Should I sit down to meditate or not? And we have this freedom, and that's really where we can do so much. And one fundamental point when we are talking about our spiritual path is setting an objective, being able to be at peace with oneself, peace with others, to get out of this cycle of suffering, this vicious cycle in which we find ourselves. We're going to talk about that more today. And to do this, we need a path of transformation. So we choose with awareness to walk this path. In other words, it's based on a choice on a choice that's taken with awareness to transform ourselves in a certain way. So at the basis of our path, there's a taking of responsibility where we decide to live this present moment no longer like a result of the past, but as the cause of our future. That's our starting point. And to do this, there are two main points in just a few words. If I want to develop a certain mental state, let's say satisfaction, to do that, I can't wait that just one day out of nothing I become satisfied. I need to familiarize myself with satisfaction so that gradually that becomes natural. And there are two different processes of familiarization. There's an actual formal training, formal practice, and then there's the moment between sessions, between these formal sessions, like saying, if I have a problem, with my back, and I need to do physiotherapy, for example. I have the sessions of physiotherapy, and then between the sessions, there are rules that I need to respect, right? Like the way I sit. Like in this moment, I have a problem in my cervical spine, and when I'm not with the osteopath doing the specific exercises, I need to be careful. I need to keep my head, I need to look straight, not spend too much time looking down at a screen. I mean, there are many things I need to respect during the sessions, because if I do all the sessions I need to do, but then in between I do the opposite, it's really quite useless, isn't it? So the practice is based on these two moments. I mean, one is as important as the other. There's the moment of formal meditation. Let's remember that the term meditation means to get used to familiarize oneself. So I am formally directing my mind on one state of consciousness that I want to get more familiar with. Again, we've seen before that first step along the graduated path is to be able to rely on a spiritual guide, develop trust and love, which has to do also with a deep trust and faith in ourselves. That's the first step. But to be able to meditate on something, let's remember that meditate means to familiarize ourselves with something. So if I need to meditate on impermanence, for example, I generate that state of consciousness that perceives that impermanence, and then I stay on that state. And when I'm not meditating on impermanence, I need to try to maintain that mind. We've come to the point, the explanation. We're at the very first part of how to meditate on something. Because to meditate, to sit down and do an exercise of familiarization on one aspect or another, there's a necessary preparation. And this is where we had gotten to last time. We got to, after having seen the importance of relying correctly on a spiritual guide, let's remember, it's just in a few words. One of the most important aspects of our being human, it has to do with the relationships that we have, and the relationships are based on trust. This has to do with anything, not just the spiritual path. If I go to eat something at a restaurant, and me being there, sitting down, and a dish comes to my plate, there's trust, there's faith. As soon as I don't trust that place, I wouldn't go there. I get in the car and I take a taxi. I trust that person will bring me safely to where I want to go. So life is based on trust in so many aspects, and the deeper and more important the thing that I want to do is, the more important that faith, that trust is. If I go to a doctor, if I don't trust that doctor, I won't follow that treatment well. If I don't trust the treatment, I won't follow it well. I remember this conference in Holland. We were with our friends. I don't know if Elkanah, I saw Elkanah over here. I don't think it's here. Well, he he gave his PhD, and after he had given his PhD, he invited many doctors to come and discuss his PhD. We're about 50 doctors together, and they with a tremendous amount of experience. And he gave the opportunity to each doctor to share their experience. So it was a kind of mini conference for these people. I was the only one there who wasn't a doctor. I was just in the middle of all of them. And one of these doctors, they were all very interesting, but one really touched me. He said something that really touched me. He was talking about research on tumors. And they took people from all walks of life, but they all were able to be cured from a particular type of cancer. And they saw that many of those, so all these people were cured, and after a certain number of years, their cancer didn't come back. And these people used different techniques, and the question was, what was similar among them? But so all the techniques were different, but the result was the same. So what was the common denominating factor? And after long research, many patients, the conclusion was the only common denominating factor of all of these patients is that these patients had total faith and certainty that the treatment they were following was the right one for them. That was the only thing they found in common among all of them. And this shows us on a practical level with medicine, but also in our Dharma practice, it's fundamental. I go to a doctor, I need to have faith, trust in that doctor. If not, then something's just not going to work. If I don't trust that treatment, I won't follow it well. And there's another aspect as well, and I don't want to go on too long about this, but even from a point of view from our body, the faith, the trust, the trust in the doctor, for example, or therapist, whatever, and the trust in the treatment, and then the faith in my ability to be healed. These three things become the basis to take on a healing process. Using just poor words, let's say, it's a kind of placebo effect, we could say. The lack of trust does the opposite, the nocebo effect. And when we talk about our own spiritual path, we need trust in who guides us. We need trust in the method that we're going to apply. And we need faith in our ability to put it into practice. And we need also faith and trust in those who accompany us. So like I go to the hospital, I need to trust the doctor, the medicine, my ability to heal, and all the nurses that support me. If this faith is missing, and this is not towards someone, like I entrust myself to you, you do with me what you want, it has nothing to do with that. Because if we go to a doctor and we say, do with me what you want, what could the doctor say? What do you want me to do? I mean, I can't do for you what you can't do, what you don't do for yourself. So when we rely on a spiritual guide, when we take refuge in the Guru, it means I want to be well. I trust that this path can help me, and I trust that you can guide me correctly on this path, and I believe that I can follow this path, that I can realize these steps. This trust just doesn't come from one day to the next. It's something that we need to train ourselves in, because the deeper it is, the deeper our practice is, that training, that process of transformation, this transformation becomes faster and deeper in the direction that we want to go. And this is at the basis is this trust, this faith, with love. At the basis, there's love, and this needs to be cultivated and taken care of year after year throughout our lives. It's not like, okay, now I've chosen my guru and now it's done. No, it's a lifelong process. This is very important to remember. It's an aspect that for many, many years in the West, this was not explained well. Why? Because there was this, let's say, danger. Like, for example, here I am in the position of a Lama or of a spiritual guide. And if I'm here explaining the importance of the spiritual guide, it seems like I want to be venerated. But no, I'm here, and my attitude is, here we are, hand in hand, and we're walking in the same direction. But it's an aspect of trust. It's not a question of adulation or who's more important. The point is, if we want to do something important together, we need to have mutual faith, trust. And to be able to meditate on this point and all the others that will come afterwards, at the beginning of the Lam Rim teachings, there's actually, it's explained, okay, before going into the details on how to rely correctly on the spiritual guide, we talk about how to meditate, and we talk about the preliminaries. And we had gotten to the 6 dharmas of preparation. Then that first one was to clean our place and prepare our altar and set up the offerings, prepare the offerings well, and then sitting down to prepare our body and prepare our mind. So we bring our mind to a state of balance through our breath. And now we've gotten to the point where we need to generate the correct motivation. So let's imagine that we take a bow and arrow in our hands. We can pull it very, very strongly, and we can be very still and make sure that arrow goes far. But the direction we give to that arrow changes the result completely. It will change completely that action, the direction. Similarly, when we do something, the motivation that we have, the intention that is at the basis, and it's not conceptual, it's something deeper. Why are we doing what we're doing? This will determine the direction of that action. And when we sit down to meditate, why do we do it? And here there are 2 states of consciousness. Actually, it's just one main state of consciousness, but to get to one, we need to go through one, to develop one. So they are loving oneself and loving others. At the basis of our practice, the motivation of the motivation at its basis is loving ourselves and loving others. Consequently, so first, before meditating on anything, we should familiarize ourselves first with loving ourselves, to then be able to love others. And then later, these 2 meditations are more detailed and longer. And just in this moment, it's briefer. In the preparation, we generate love towards ourselves, and then also love for others. But then after it's not only just in the preparation, but it's an actual point of the path. Usually it's not explained here, but I think it's important because in whatever practice you do, let's say there are 3 levels that the practice is done. And we sit down in the correct posture. We're there to meditate. And there are 3 aspects of this practice. And there's a more external level. Formally, what am I reciting? I can recite in Buddha Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment, etc. May I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings as a first level. What am I doing physically? What am I reciting? And then I also understand the meaning of the words, use the right melody. So if it's a guru puja or self-healing, whatever it is. So that first level is superficial, but it's important. It's essential at the beginning because words support the next level, which is what am I thinking about? What am I thinking? So to help me think correctly, we visualize. So not only do I recite, I think about the meaning of the words and I imagine, I generate that imagination that's generated helps direct the mind very, very clean, very strongly, because there's an enormous difference between understanding something conceptually and then imagining something. It's very different within. So visualization, imagining is very important for these practices. They help us direct our mind. And also as a support to get to that third level, which is what state of consciousness do I want to develop. So when we take refuge, for example, which is the first formal moment, it's like how to recite, what to recite, and then what should we visualize, and what is the state of consciousness that we should generate. If we take this marvelous book, for example, Liberation in our hands, you will find the minimum details about what to recite and what to visualize. There's just, it's so detailed, but at the beginning, what is not explained so much because it's a consequence of doing this over time, but I think it's important to talk about right from the beginning is what state of consciousness are we developing, because we can recite something for a long time, which is good. We can do many visualizations, that's marvelous, but in my opinion, I think we also need to really understand what we are familiarizing ourselves with. So, at the beginning, we're sitting in the correct position. We're sitting in the correct posture. The 7 postures of Vairochana. We've done the breathing exercises to calm our mind, and the first part that we need to do, we need to ask ourselves something absolutely fundamental. What do I want? It's a question that we don't often ask ourselves, but it determines what we're going to do. In just a few words, this is the first moment when we sit down to meditate. We should do even if it's a short meditation, we should meditate on the 4 noble truths. Let me explain myself better. We do an analytical process. We reflect as if we were explaining something to someone or even talking to ourselves. The first question that we ask ourselves is really deeply, what is it that I want? And we see that at the desire to be well and to not suffer. That's what we all have in common, or we all have within this. We have this strong desire. If we come into contact with this desire, and we need to try to understand, to come into contact with that strong longing. Where do I project my suffering? What is it that I don't want? Where do we project our suffering? We have physical suffering and mental suffering. Also because, as Shantideva said in the Bodhisattva Charavatara, if there's no suffering, then we wouldn't have the determination to get out of that suffering. And sometimes it's translated as without ask ourselves, what do I want to avoid? Where is my suffering? And we'll see that there's suffering of body, and there's suffering of mind, fear, anxiety, sadness, nervousness, etc., etc. And it's important in this mind to allow ourselves to go beyond and see that not only is there manifested suffering, Buddha calls it the suffering of suffering, but deeply there are also those moments where we try to get out of our suffering, doing things that momentarily keep us from feeling that suffering, but sooner or later that suffering comes back. A bit like the analogy that we used last time is, if I put something rotten in front of me that just really stinks, there's the moment where we smell that bad smell, and we don't want to smell that stink. And so as we smell that bad smell, we say, oh, we don't want that anymore. So then we cover it up. We spray some perfume. We say, okay, now we're okay. But if that thing is still rotting, sooner or later, the effect of that perfume is going to go away, and that bad smell is going to come back. And then what do we do in those cases? We just put more perfume. A little bit like, if we use the analogy, well, let's say it's a more like a superficial explanation. It's like we, for example, during our lifetime, we experience and we live experiences not well. And the example I've always used, let's say at a certain point in my life, I feel strongly abandoned. That we have that there's that system of body and mind, really tries to show me that there's this block. I feel abandoned. And what do? I project it in my surroundings, the people around me, and until I'm able to take away that knot, that block, that trauma, that wound, then that wound, that suffering is just going to show itself again and again. Normally, when we have like a mental suffering, what do? Do we try to face it, saying, okay, good, I can see what's not going well, I try to understand and face this all? Or do we simply say, okay, now I just want to think about something else? Our attitude is, the more perfume there is, the better it is. We try to look away, to not see, to not smell something bad. But what happens is, those moments where we try to block the suffering. I mean, they work, but not so much. These days, I have strong pain because of this problem in my cervical, my neck. So yes, pain medication helps, but it's not going to solve the problem. If I keep taking them, maybe I don't even feel the pain anymore, but I haven't resolved anything. And it's important for us to go to the cause, understand where it comes from, and see that, the things that we do in our day, this palliative care, let's say, where we're not constructing a long-lasting happiness. We're just trying to keep ourselves from suffering momentarily. So, I mean, there are things. Are there things? The more I have, the better off I am. Are there or not? The more money I have, the better off I am. Yes or no? Sincerely speaking. Is there anyone through the increasing of this material wealth is able to exponentially, not even exponentially, but is it at the same level, is able to increase this level of satisfaction and happiness? So no, so it's not true. The more money I have, the better off I am. At the end of the day, it's a little bit part of like the illusion of money. So if money doesn't buy happiness, then give me yours. Okay, they don't bring happiness. You say that because you have money, but so give me your money. I mean, it's obvious. Money lets us buy a lot of perfume to put something, to cover up really well what's stinking. It seems like that happiness lasts a bit longer, but there's another problem to that. The fact that what happens when a sickness shows its symptoms, and we're good at covering up those symptoms and stopping them, then those symptoms become stronger, the sickness becomes more resistant. And what happens is when we use too much perfume, at a certain point, that perfume doesn't even work anymore. And it's, in other words, it's almost worse. How can I say? When we don't have any more desires because we have everything, but we still feel the void, that there's something that's not going well. When we still have that illusion, when I will meet my princess, my prince, as long as it's no matter how much of a projection, no matter how much of an illusion it is, but as long as we have this illusion, this projection, we can even marry a Buddha, but we're still going to project all of our negative. But before that, I mean, if I still have that dream, there's something within me that's pushing me to think that I'll be happy. But if I have everything and I'm still not well, it's worse. Something that happens is when you buy a lot of perfume and you have a lot of possibility, and at a certain point you've experienced everything, and you have just a truckload of perfume, but you still smell the stink. I mean, this happens to many of us in our society. Let's be honest. One of my masters, Gen Lakpala, we were in the city in Bangalore, and to do something nice, I tried to book a hotel that was a little nicer. I mean, normally we would stay like next to the bus stop, um, but it actually the hotel had a really nice had a nice it was nice. So you paid only for the time you were there. But that day we went to a hotel. This hotel was a little bit nicer, and he said at the end of the day, I mean, you know, you have to go and you sleep and then you leave, and the bathroom is a little bit nicer or not. I mean, you've got to do what you need to do. You do your business in the bathroom. So what does it change for you? You just spend more money. So if you look within, I mean, our material circumstances. I mean, I don't know the life of everyone, and I can't judge the life of anyone. But just generalizing, I'd say that we're all well off, and but even in spite of being like that, we still live under this illusion. Oh, if I could have the car, you know, a nicer car, or a longer vacation, or in this place, and I'd be better off. Okay, if someone said, I'm going to triple your salary, we wouldn't say, oh no, that's an illusion of happiness. I don't think that we would say that. But it's important for us to remember that it's not that we need, that material resources, and they're not negative in themselves, but they can't sustain happiness. The real problem is not the perfume that stinks. No, the perfume smells good, but perfume. The problem isn't the perfume. The problem is taking refuge in perfume. I mean, if it worked, then you know that would be wonderful. But material things cannot sustain our happiness. And we see this in our society everywhere. Just look at the Western world where there's so much wealth and abundance. I mean, our ancestors couldn't even dream of such wealth and abundance. And this material abundance and these pleasures, now, I mean, every day one could really have, you know, have a meal as if it were Christmas. And does that bring more satisfaction and joy and well-being? Being able to celebrate every day as if it were Christmas? No, we're living today. We're living one of the worst crises beyond the wars and the climate crisis. One of the most worrisome crises that we're living as a society is emotional instability and mental health crisis. It's not discussed enough, but it's extremely serious and worrisome, and without getting into details about it. But this shows us clearly that having all material wealth without this satisfaction is just not enough. I mean, what would happen if we ate our favorite food every single day? Are we just better off every day? Or if at a certain point it's just no longer our favorite food? So sensory pleasures is the same thing, and same thing with sex. Desire in its nature, I'm getting a little bit out of Dharma here, but desire in its nature, for there to be a little bit of satisfaction, a little pleasure, requires the dynamic of seduction. The stronger the seduction is, and the more conquest the more sense of conquest, then the stronger the pleasure becomes. If I don't need to conquest anything or seduce anyone. I don't need to do anything to get what I want. Then my satisfaction is a lot less too. So it's not that increasing our sensory pleasures that our happiness also increases. And the third point is this recognition of our image, which is really the greatest of all the traps. We project our happiness on wanting people to love us, seeing us as being this way or that way. How much energy and time do we put into trying to get approval from others? Just look how this manifests in social media. You could, okay, how many likes have I received? It doesn't matter what I've done, but it doesn't matter that the nature of what I'm transmitting, if it's important to me or not, but it's just how many people have liked it. I really prefer to not comment more on this. This shows us that we are projecting our happiness onto something that is not negative in and of itself, but it just doesn't support, it doesn't uphold the happiness. And we can say there are three types of perfume: material wealth, material goods, things, sensory pleasures, and the recognition of our image, fame and power, or just simple approval. Without getting into details now, but looking for approval, the more approval I get, the more I suffer when I receive disapproval. But everyone says that you're good. Everyone says that I'm good. How do you dare say that I'm not? And we suffer. So it's important for us in this phase. First, we need to observe the suffering of our body, the suffering of our mind. Generate that strong feeling, or we say that strong feeling of not wanting to suffer anymore. This feeling of wanting to be free from suffering. The second, let's observe the suffering of change. Everything in those moments where we are projecting our happiness onto things that can't sustain it. Those moments where we put lots of perfume, or it seems like it's all working out well, but we know that it's not. And it's kind of an inner fatigue where we know that it's an illusion. It's useless to keep doing like this. I need to take care of everything. Using a personal analogy of this moment, it's like saying, okay, it's okay every once in a while to take ibuprofen, ibuprofen really. But at a certain point, one has to say, no, I don't like it. It's not good. And that brings us to the next step, where we develop aversion, not only to that palliative care. I mean, nothing against ibuprofen or any kind of other anti-inflammatory, like Tylenol, but we say no. I need to go to the cause. I'm tired that it just keeps coming back. That thing just keeps coming back, and at that point, one connects with that state of sickness. I'm not connecting anymore to the pain. In my case, it's not the pain in my arm that's the problem. It's the actual hernia, or this kind of bulge in my neck, my spine, where we say, I don't want the sickness. I mean, pain is one thing, but I don't want the real problem. And here, we're talking about the suffering, the all-permeating suffering. It's being able to look and say, I don't want a body or mind that are polluted by my mental defilements and the so-called karma. Let me explain myself better. As long as I am taken by a way of relating to reality that is incoherent, I live reality, a subjective reality as if it were objective, an impermanent reality as if it were permanent, or a non-dual reality as if everything were separated, and through this heavy lens of self-gratification and selfishness, self-centeredness, then from which come all these negative defilements, like anger and resentment and jealousy and doubt and etc. I mean, they don't just stay in our mind; they also have a physical reaction. I mean, body and mind are always together. So it's my body and mind that are polluted by these so-called mental defilements, and as long as there will be suffering. Not only that, but together with that, I've also done things. It's not like when we feel jealousy or anger, we don't just stay still. We end up acting physically, verbally, mentally. Every action creates an interaction that brings results and creates a kind of inertia. To explain it in simple words, and we'll talk about this later in more detail, but just simply, today we're living the result. Today, are we living the result of choices that we made in our adolescence or childhood? Maybe at that moment we never imagined that they would leave an effect so many years later. So that emotion, those words that we live, there's this inertia that comes to us today, even from when we were still in the womb. This is karmic force, this inertia that was generated. Karma means action. So it's a kind of force, a kind of inertia. When you do something, that action ends, but there's an inertia, there's this force that follows that action, and that inertia sooner or later manifests through something that we experience. So as long as our body and mind are polluted by ignorance, selfishness, anger, attachment, so-called mental defilements, and also together with that, the karmic force, this inertia of actions that were done previously based on those mental defilements. Those two together, it's like fire and oil together. It just explodes. Inevitably, it generates suffering. So this state of inflammation, let's say, this state of a polluted body and mind, polluted by mental defilements and karma, is our all-permeating suffering. And the analogy, it's the analogy we used before. It's the rotten things. Okay, I don't want to smell that bad smell anymore. I'm tired of putting perfume. I don't want that rotten thing there anymore. I'm going to have to get my hands dirty. It's going to be tired, but it's better to get rid of it little by little instead of just pretending it's not there, covering it up, victimizing myself. So in that first moment, we try gradually to imagine, we observe within, we look at our own sufferings. Here's something very important. When we meditate on the path, we are not familiarizing ourselves with an abstract external idea. I shouldn't think about the suffering, the suffering of change, all pervading suffering. Okay, there's the suffering of body and mind. Okay, the suffering of change is when one projects one's happiness onto something that can't sustain it, that then sooner or later manifests as suffering. The all pervading suffering is the body and the mind polluted by the negative defilements and karma. No, it's my physical and mental suffering that I need to observe it and say, I don't want this anymore. It's my projecting happiness onto something that can't sustain it, and observe it, recognize it, and say, I'm tired of this. It's my body, it's my mind that's polluted by mental defilements and karma, and we need to look at that and say, okay, as long as it's like this, it's useless that I try to do this. Whatever I do, I'm going to bring this with me, and that suffering is always going to manifest. Like that joke I used to tell as a child, at 5, 6 years old, I would toward the adults, and I say, wherever I touch myself, it hurts. I touch my head, it hurts. I touch my knee, it hurts, etc. Hours I would go on like this. What's my sickness? And I'd say the conclusion is, I have my finger hurts. So as long as my finger hurts, it doesn't matter where I touch, it's going to hurt. And similarly, as long as I have ignorance, and consequently attachment, dissatisfaction, anger, jealousy, desire, and as long as I react through those negative defilements, I'm going to suffer. So let's reflect on these three, and to reflect, we need to recognize them within ourselves. And if you look and you can't find, keep looking. and if you really are looking and can't find, then you're very well off. But it's important to find, to look within, to find our suffering of suffering and all pervading suffering within, and come into contact with that suffering. And saying to ourselves, enough is enough, because until I do not have, unless I generate that strong desire to not want that suffering anymore, then I'm not going to put the effort into getting rid of it. If I don't have a sickness, if I have a sickness, as long as I strongly just don't want that sickness anymore, I won't try to follow any kind of treatment. I won't put effort into finding the right doctor, the right treatment. I won't exchange my nice holiday with putting effort into doing the right exercises, or doing physiotherapy, or whatever it is. If we don't recognize our suffering, then we won't have this desire to get out of this suffering. And it shouldn't be suffering to recognize our suffering. It should be a process of liberation, because we recognize we can get out of this suffering. So the first part is, what do I want to avoid? And then we reflect on that. What do I want to avoid? We breathe deeply, try to breathe in the 4 phases as we've explained previously. We inhale, we hold, we exhale, we hold. We make sure we try that holding and the exhale is longer, possibly the double of the inhale and the final hold. And then we do this inner research where we're looking at that the suffering of suffering, my physical pain as well, suffering of suffering, how's my body, and then that suffering of suffering, or we're constantly looking for. I'm very tired of trying to find happiness in things that just don't last, and the all-permeating suffering, body and mind that are polluted by mental defilements and karmic force of negative actions of the past. Enough is enough. Allow ourselves to feel, to generate this desire, this feeling that we don't want this anymore. And once you've done that, then you go to the next step, which is, why do I suffer? Before getting to an answer, we ask ourselves, where do we project the causes of our suffering normally? 3 things. We think we suffer because we can't have what we want. In other words, the world isn't the way it should be. People don't act the way they should act. I put all this effort, even these things aren't the way they should be. I put all this effort into coming to Albagnano, and there's no sun. Or the second one is, so the first illusion, the first one is, why do we think we suffer? Is because things are not the way, we can't have what we want. So the first is, I can't have what I want. And the second is, if, like, so the first is, you are like this and you shouldn't be. No? And the second, and the third is that we have to separate from the things that we love. And if we just look, we can really see that we project our suffering on these 3 things, and we're constantly victimizing ourselves. So the first one, we observe where we project our suffering, and then I ask myself, is that coherent? Is that true? Is it true that I suffer because I can't have what I want, or I suffer because I need to live what I don't want to live, and because I need to separate myself from what I like? And the question is the opposite possible? Can you have what you want, avoid what you don't want, and keep what you do want? I mean, is it actually feasible? No. The more I have, the more I want. As long as there's aversion within me, then there's always something I want to avoid. And things, as soon as they begin, as anything begins, it starts to end. So why do I actually suffer? I suffer because I have unlimited attachment. I always want more. I want what the conditions don't allow. I suffer because I have mental defilements like resentment and anger and jealousy, and I'm not able to accept impermanence of myself and others, and deeply because I suffer because I'm selfish, and I'm full of self-centeredness, and I react with anger and jealousy deeply because I'm ignorant, and I react accordingly and create this vicious cycle. So we recognize why we suffer, and we generate a deep desire to want to abandon all of this. Otherwise, we're just going to keep on with this cycle. The first question, what do I want to avoid? Second question, why do I suffer? Third question is, what is happiness? is it possible to be well or not? It's not the question that we ask looking for an answer outside. What is it's not what is the cause of suffering in general? It's the what is the cause of my suffering? Otherwise we say, okay, what are the causes of suffering? And we answer, the causes of sufferings are the mental defilements and karma. Okay, okay, you've memorized well, good. Then after 3 minutes, something happens. Okay, it's his fault. He's the reason why I'm suffering. The question is, what are the causes of my suffering? Really, where do I project all of this? And we get to the point where we say, I suffer because of my mental mental defilements and my karma, and I want to overcome this. Can I? Is it possible? And that's the third question. Is it possible to get out of the cycle of suffering or not? Where do I project my happiness? At the end of the day, what do I want? Do I want to live in a comfortable samsara? Or do I want to get out of it? I'm quite convinced, unfortunately. I can't say everyone, I don't know, but unfortunately, many would say, if I were to say, I'll give you a concrete choice. Do you want a comfortable samsara, lots of perfume, just, or do you want a sure path to get out of this? And I'll give you all the cleaning products and some thick gloves. Which one do you want? Okay, let's start with perfume, and then little bit in the future. Maybe in the future, I can start with the other, but for now, let's start with the perfume. I mean, what most of us want is a comfortable samsara, but it's important to ask ourselves, really, what do we want? When we see that comfortable samsara, we just say it's not enough. And remember that there's nothing wrong with pleasures. There's nothing wrong with the perfume. But we need to take refuge in other things. I want nirvana. I want this inner state of liberation, freedom from my ignorance, which means developing wisdom and developing coherence and living what is subjective as subjective, what's interdependent as interdependent, what's impermanent as impermanent. Have an inner state of being of altruism where my happiness is as important as yours, and vice versa. Where my suffering is as important as yours, where I expand my consciousness and my love towards other, or a state where there's satisfaction, stability, concentration, a deep state of joy. That's what I want. In other words, I want to get out of samsara, to get out of this cycle of suffering. That's what I want. And once that becomes our main objective, the fourth question comes, how do I do that? And the only way to do that is not waiting for something to happen or fall from the sky, or that somebody comes to save us. But gradually, it's by gradually transforming our body, speech, and mind with awareness. And to do this, we need help. So when we get here, that means that we're ready for what's called the taking of refuge. Because we will never be able to take refuge if it's not clear to us what we're taking refuge from. When we sit down to meditate and do our practice, okay, it's fine that you sit down and you just start reciting Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Okay, you recite and you go on. But it's important to also do it with giving yourself more time, so that what you say and what you feel, that they're connected. And so to take refuge, the first thing we need to do is to generate the causes of refuge within us. And the causes of refuge, there are two of them. The traditional term I don't really like so much, but it's very clear. I don't like it because in our cultural context, it might sound different. But the causes are fear and faith. What is fear? Fear, not in this context. We're not talking about the feeling of fear of losing control of oneself. No, it's imagining a future that we want to avoid. Normally, we're afraid of something that is. We're afraid of things that we imagine they're not there. Actually, I'm afraid of earthquakes, so I don't go places where there are earthquakes. So I recognize there's something that will hurt me, and I want to avoid that thing. That generates fear, like wanting to avoid if you want to cure yourself of a sickness, you need to first be afraid of that sickness. Because if you are not afraid of that state of sickness, then you won't do anything to put into effort to change the habits and to take up a treatment. If someone comes and says, your problem, you have this pain, your problem is because you need to stop eating this, that, or the other. And you go, no, but it's so good. And pizza? But it's not good for you. Okay, well, every once in a while. And then every once in a while becomes often. But for someone to really put into practice what he needs to do, one needs to really recognize that even though it's tasty, it's poison for me, and I don't want that. So having fear, being afraid, it's the fear of samsara, of living in the awareness of wanting to get out of all permeating suffering, and saying, okay, the perfume is nice, but I really just need to get rid of that rotten stuff. This is fine, these pleasurable moments, but we need to enjoy our lives. I'm not saying that we should suffer. On the contrary, but my priority is to overcome my selfishness, my ignorance, my jealousy, my anger, and live so that I'm constantly increasing and developing my positive qualities. And that comes from that so-called fear, this deep recognition of this cycle of mental defilements, of actions and results of suffering. And we say, no, I just can't do this anymore. And this is called fear, which is the first cause. And the second cause is called faith. Faith, let's give an example. As long as I walk to get water, I need to be afraid of water, afraid of thirst, and faith in water. Otherwise, I'm not going to walk for kilometers to go get water. I remember once I was in India. I was with my father and many other friends. We had gone for a picnic on this holy mountain in the south of India, and the place of the picnic was about 400 steps up this mountain, and it was hot, and we were so thirsty, and there wasn't any more water. And he needed to go down to get water. What did you do? Are you going to walk down 400 steps? Well, one does that because they're afraid of being thirsty. Otherwise you wouldn't do that under a hot sun. So what happens is, who can help me to transform myself in a positive way, develop altruism, develop love and compassion, stability, concentration, spontaneous joy, to gradually develop more and more wisdom and get out of this cycle of samsara? Someone who's already done it. I can't ask to be guided by a blind man unless that blind man, I mean, nothing against the blind men. Actually, many blind people can see much more than we do. But if we're talking about something that needs to be seen with our eyes, I can't ask someone who cannot see. I need to ask someone who's already had this experience and can see. And Buddha Shakyamuni was someone who was able to get out of his own cycle of suffering. And not only did he do it for himself, he shared with others how to do it. And there's an uninterrupted line of transmission that arrives, it's lasted for centuries, and that arrives to us. And it's worked for people who the same problems that we have, so why shouldn't it work for us? So if I ask Buddha for help, oh Buddha, help me, how can Buddha come and help us? On a practical level. I shouldn't be there waiting for some kind of vision, and the light comes from the sky, some kind of sound. No, I'm made of flesh and bones. I need someone, a flesh and blood that I can interact with, who can help me. That's why I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in the Guru, who comes from an uninterrupted lineage, bringing this method of healing for me to receive. And so he also brought it in a correct way, without wrong interpretations, but adapting to my way of thinking. So I ask Buddha. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in the Guru. It's not actual refuge, but it's the one who concedes me refuge. It's like when I go to a doctor, the doctor can't heal me, but he can give me a healing treatment that I can follow. For example, in the Brazilian tribes, the pajé, who's the healer. So to become the healer, he needs to experience sickness himself. So he goes through a process of living different sicknesses and getting out of those sicknesses to then be able to help others. That's part of their method. And so you, Buddha, you've lived the same sickness as I have, and you were able to cure yourself and help others be cured. So help me. I take refuge in the Dharma, which is not only the medicine, not only the medicine, but also the process of taking the treatment. So when I when I sit down for Dharma teachings, they don't finish once I've stopped listening to the teachings. It's about sitting down on the cushion and applying those teachings to my life. And then when I take refuge in the Sangha, I'm taking refuge in the spiritual company that are helping me, supporting me. But do we take refuge every day, generally speaking? Outside of a Buddhist context? Because just generally speaking, how many times a day do we take refuge? So many times a day. We take refuge in food. We take refuge in friends, in our telephone, in an infinite number of things. And to get right to the point, normally we take refuge from the suffering of suffering, and we take refuge in the suffering of change. This is our tendency. We take refuge from some kind of mental, physical suffering, and we take refuge into something that can momentarily help but not resolve. So we take refuge from the bad smell, and we take refuge in the perfume. That's what we do normally. But here we say, I want to go beyond. So taking refuge, it's not a ceremony. It's not something that is merely recited. It's an inner state of being where we entrust ourselves really in the Dharma, a process of familiarization with one's own qualities to be able to overcome our mental defilements. I entrust that process, and to do that, I entrust myself to he or she who guides me along this path. So I develop that faith. And this is where I develop also love for myself, because loving myself at the end of the day means wanting to be happy, wanting to be well, and when I get out of samsara, I'm loving myself. It's like a deep commitment to cultivate what's good for me and abandon what's bad for me. So we think about suffering and the causes of suffering and wanting to reach a deep state of peace, and we really take the commitment to follow that path. We are really cultivating love for ourselves. This is the first step of our meditation. After having generated a state of calm and calmed our mind with the breathing techniques, etc. And someone said, but that's already so much. And the answer is absolutely yes. One error that we do sometimes is sometimes we want to get to the 10th step without having taken the first step or two. We say that, but the 10th is so much higher. Yes, but how are you going to get to the 10th without how are you going to get there if you're skipping the first couple steps? People might think, oh, who knows if I just pray hard enough, maybe I'll be just spontaneously taken up to the 10th level. Atisha in the Jewel Garden of the Bodhisattva, he says, "Tongwar Tsange."
Tongmar tsamba kaimba tangbor teni drup chate teta nini kun lekche shendo niga drup migyur. Verso 13. E dice.
Verse 13, he says, whatever you have begun, first of all, take it, finish it before starting something new. And like this, you will be able to do both. Otherwise, you won't do anything at all. Because if I start this process of developing love for myself, and I want already to really develop love towards other, I won't be able to do either. But if I really concentrate and if I solidify this love for myself, then I will very easily be able to go on and reach also the second objective of loving others as well. You know, if I love someone tremendously, or if I have compassion for someone, the reference point that I have is what I like or my suffering, respectively. So if my suffering, my understanding of suffering is only suffering of suffering, then, but if I'm able to recognize all permeating suffering, and then I see you, and I want you also to be free, not only from the suffering of suffering, but the all permeating suffering. We can't want for others what we don't want, for ourselves. So this is a very important step that we'll see further along. In the Lam Rim, we do a very short meditation like this, and then there's a very long explanation about how to generate this self-love with many, many details. It's one of the most important steps that exists. But when we start to meditate, to try at least just to dedicate a couple minutes to this step. We observe our own suffering. We recognize the three sufferings within ourselves. Why we suffer, where do we project our suffering, what's the real cause of my suffering, what do I really want, what's my deeper objective is to get out of samsara and develop a long-lasting inner peace, and then entrust myself to see that it's possible and entrust myself to the path that will lead me there. Allow yourself to go through this step, and at this point you do we can do the more formal part of the taking refuge. So if we're able to do this reflection on the Four Noble Truths well, that really allows us to deeply take refuge. Otherwise, if we just sit down and we can even put our eyes a little bit like this, and in our hands in the prayer mode with such intention, Namo Guru Bhye. But if we haven't meditated, just even briefly on the four noble truths, then the causes of refuge are missing, and the causes of refuge are fear and faith, and we could start taking refuge, which is just a constant victimizing myself, where we say, "Oh, Buddha, help me, make sure that that I can have everything I want, that I can avoid everything that I don't want, and never be separated from what I like." And Buddha would say, "I'm sorry. If I could, I would. I would do it for you." Is that clear? Very often, I'm sorry to say, we end up using spiritual tools for mundane things. I can spend days accumulating the mantra for the taking of refuge, and maybe I feel better. But if it's done just to have more perfume, mundane reasons, at the end of the day, it will not bring any kind of spiritual growth. We need to connect ourselves with the motivation and sincerely. At the beginning, first of all, really at the beginning, we need to dedicate more time. So without being in a hurry, sit down, breathe, try to use the rhythm of your breath and reflect on the Four Noble Truths, these 4 questions that we've asked ourselves. Having done that, we connect with Buddha, remembering that the Buddha it doesn't make reference necessarily to the historical Buddha. The Buddha is a state of realizations. I am making reference to he or she who has reached that that state of having developed positive qualities to their maximum qualities. In Tibetan, Buddha is called Sangye. The Tibetans were marvelous in translating Sanskrit, and there's actually I think it's Sonsen Gampo, this king who, or Chisan Detsen, I think it's Sonsen Gampo, who called many experts of Buddhism and linguistic efforts, and for more than a year, he had them write the manuals on how to translate Sanskrit into Tibetan. So there's a tremendous coherence in the terminology, something that in Italian or other languages it doesn't exist. Each translates a little bit as he likes, and so there was one. So sometimes the original term in Sanskrit. I mean, we have three possibilities. When we have a new word, we keep the same word. And also they followed this as well. I mean, you can make a new word, or you can keep that old word, or you can take the meaning of that word. So when Buddhism came to Tibet, the concept of Buddha didn't exist. So instead of using a literal translation, so a word that existed in Tibetan, like the enlightened one, they decided to create a new word, and the word they created is Sangye. Tibetan is a composed language, and words are made mostly of two syllables, and sometimes each word is also is a word. So sang is a word, and ge is a word, and sang means to eliminate, to clean, to take away, and ge means to develop, to grow, to increase. So sangye is to eliminate and develop, which means it's a state where one has completely eliminated every mental defilements and the imprints, and has developed his own positive qualities to their maximum potential. So what do we have? What kind of word do we have that could mean all of that? I take refuge in the eliminate, develop. It doesn't sound right. So it's better to say Buddha. But the problem is when we say Buddha, we think about the person. Instead, it's a state of being which that person actually reached. It's like I ask help to the doctor. It's not just that one doctor who exists, but a doctor is someone who studied medicine, is able to apply it and cure sicknesses. But all of those who've done that are doctors. So I call that person who has those characteristics doctor. And similarly, there are many Buddhas. I call someone who has reached that state Buddha Shakyamuni. And the Buddha Shakyamuni talked about Buddhas who came before him, and talked also about Buddhas who will come after him, talked about this era in which we find ourselves. He says there'll be about 1,002 Buddhas who will manifest physically. It's said that the Buddhas can also manifest in many different forms. And Buddha is a state. So when we take refuge in Buddha, we ask help to someone who has already reached that state. And in our specific case, we connect with Buddha Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha, and all those who came after him, who brought that knowledge, that experience, that from generation to generation, to allow us today to receive. I mean, how can I actually take refuge in Buddha today? Through my gurus, who received the Dharma from their gurus, who received from them theirs, all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni. And then we can talk about the blessings and on a more subtle level. But I need someone who comes to me and talks to me with words and shows me and concedes the Dharma to me in a way that I'm able to understand. The Buddha is also, it said that the Buddha said, I will be present not in the form of the scriptures, but I will be present for those. I will be present for those who want to follow the path, through those who have received the teachings and have put into practice the teachings. Here on my left, your right, you can see Kyabshe Chögyam Rinpoche, who's the root guru of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche. You can see that he has these two flowers on the side, and then on his right there's a dorje and a bell, and then on his left there's a kind of bumpa, a vase, which is the same that you can see Buddha Maitreya has as well. What does it represent? It represents a container of nectar. The nectar is called the Nectar of Immortality. The Nectar of Immortality actually it's not a liquid that if you drink and you won't die. This illusion illusion of humans to want to live forever. No, the nectar of immortality is the Dharma that allows us to get out of the cycle of suffering in a long-lasting way. So that nectar, Kyabshe Chögyam Rinpoche received it from his gurus, who received it from their gurus, all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni. So when it's said that when we transmit the Dharma, it's said we use this term or this saying that the guru he pours everything that's in his vase to the next, to his disciple as he transmits it. So. And so all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni, pouring all that each master's received to his disciple, all the way to me, and what I have received, I am giving to you. So why do we take refuge in the Buddha? Because what we want is the Dharma. The Dharma are not just the teachings. The teachings are the words, be them spoken or written, or actually also in a non-verbal way. But the teachings are not the words. The words are the vehicle through which the Dharma is transmitted. The real Dharma comes, the real transmission of the Dharma comes with the awareness of the three sufferings, of the awareness of wanting to get out of samsara, falling in love with inner peace. It's something that someone can feel and develop within after having received those teachings. When that realization generated within, that's when we say that the Dharma has been transmitted. The importance of for example, the importance of altruism and love for others. If that moves something, we can say that one has really receive the transmission. So the nectar is really the transformation of our being. We take refuge in that nectar, in the Dharma. That is the actual refuge. And if we have received the nectar, we need to drink it. And when do we drink it? When we apply and we use that medicine to transform ourselves. When we sit down, when we apply it in our days, that's when we're actually taking refuge in the Dharma. If someone says, is this path easy or difficult? It's very difficult. But I ask myself, not following this path, is that easy or difficult? On one side, you say, okay, it's easy because you don't need to do anything. But the question, living without the Dharma, is that easy or difficult? It's very difficult. I mean, life is hard, whether you want it or not. So better work hard for something that brings good results. It's like, for me, for example, I understood this once when I was I was accompanying my mother. She had to have a thyroid surgery, and we were about a month or so in Beijing for various reasons. She decided to have the surgery there. And it was the first time for me, after many, many years, where I had a week as she was doing tests and we were waiting for results. And it was the first time I just allowed myself to not do anything. I mean, really, after many, many years, where I spent a whole week and I was just there waiting. And I realized something that really had a great effect on me. In the morning, if I wake up early and I do a lot during the day, at the end of the day I'm very tired. But if I wake up and I don't do much, you do nothing, you eat, and at the end of the day you're still tired. So I understood. It's not because I'm not tired because I do a lot. No, it's a natural cycle of my body. You're awake and you get tired and then you rest and you recover. It's tiresome to be alive. So we need to get more energy by eating, by sleeping. So in our lifetime, I mean, as we're living and we're using up energy, it's important, it's better to do something that brings benefit. So this excuse, meditation, meditation makes me tired. That's just an excuse. I mean, we're using up energy all the time. Shantideva in the Bodhisattva Charavatara says, talking to his body, I pay you and I give you time to rest. I give you food. I let you sleep, then rest. I take care of you. I take you to the doctor. I do everything for you, body. Now it's time for you to work for me. Like we sit down to meditate and do what I tell you to do. So in this moment where when we take refuge, it's these two characteristics of fear, like what am I taking refuge from? Recognize samsara and want to get out of samsara. Remember that wanting to get out of samsara is not bad and fearful. No, it's wanting something more. It's not about the fear of that rotten mound. No, it's saying, oh, how wonderful it'll be without that. It's falling in love with the state that be free from all these mental defilements. And in addition, when one is able, when one gets out of the cycle of suffering, one has also the freedom to be reborn where one wants. Because when someone dies, for example, he's free to choose. We're all free to choose where we want to be born. But we're not free because we're conditioned by our mental defilements and our karma. And in our life of every day, we're free to choose, right? Is there anyone who forces us? No. But we're conditioned by our own mental defilements and the actions that we've done in the past, and the same thing at our death, the time of our death. So that freedom of choice of where to be reborn and how to be reborn doesn't come from a kind of prize, like a video game, like next level. It's when one is no longer conditioned by his own ignorance and mental defilements and karma. I mean, this is what I want. I want to be, well, this process of falling in love with this inner peace, and then that second path. Who can help me do this? Who can help transform my being gradually? I need someone to help me. I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in the Dharma, which is the actual path, and I take refuge in the Sangha, which is accompanied during the path. And during the refuge, there are two types of refuge. We talk about the causal refuge and the resultant refuge. Let's start with first. When we take refuge, we generate this intention. I want to get out of samsara. I rely on the Buddha, on the Guru, on the Buddha, on the Dharma, on the Sangha, and to cultivate this inner state, we make a visualization and a recitation. So, first we visualize and we begin with the recitation. The visualization can be extremely complex or a very simple visualization. My advice is to start with the simpler one. Also because I don't know what it is for you, but what I see for most people, starting from myself, we live in times where our ability to visualize is really diminished tremendously, like our ability to concentrate. What do we need to visualize? What for us represents the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha? Because it's like saying, I want to get out. I want to be free from my sickness. I take refuge in the doctor. What do I imagine? I imagine going to the doctor, who then gives me the right medicine, and I have this positive result. So we have this visualization of this merit field that can be very complex, or kundu norbo luk in Tibetan. Luk is tradition. It's the jewel that contains everything, and we visualize just one thing to represent everything, and that's the one I prefer. Let me just explain quickly the more complex one. And there are people who really like the things that are very detailed. Take the book Liberation in Our Hands, and there's the minimum detailed descriptions are there. When we do the complex visualization, you imagine an enormous throne, very, very vast. Imagine like a football field, upheld by 8 lions. On this throne, there are 5 thrones. And the central throne, there's Buddha Shakyamuni. He's inseparable from our own root guru. Buddha Shakyamuni has the right hand touches the ground. The left one is in the mudra of a meditative concentration. He holds a vase filled with nectar. Here, actually, there's fruit in the image. There's Buddha Shakyamuni here behind me, and in his container, this is black. You see that black container, and there's fruit, but there's also nectar, and the nectar is the Dharma. This artist put also fruit, but it's the nectar of the Dharma. So there's Buddha Shakyamuni on the central throne, and at his heart is Buddha Vajradhara, blue in color, with in the hugging mudra, representing the union of method and wisdom. And at the heart of Buddha Vajradhara is the syllable Hum. This represents the body and the subtle body and the very subtle body, and inseparable from our root guru. So at our left side and the right of Buddha Shakyamuni, on our left, and on the other throne, we have Buddha Maitreya, and to our right, the left of Buddha Shakyamuni, there's Buddha Manjushri, and around them there are the masters of the two lineages, because from Buddha Shakyamuni they came to us through two lines of transmission. One that starts from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri, and the other one to Maitreya, who's a disciples of Buddha Shakyamuni. Manjushri transmits the profound path because he gives emphasis on the correct view of reality as the main focal point, and the lineage of Maitreya that goes from Maitreya, this disciple of Buddha Shakyamuni, is called the extended lineage, where the emphasis is given the development of love and compassion and generous, and then gets to wisdom. They're both complete, but the emphasis is different. If you look around me, for example, there's this kind of blue window where you have Buddha Akshobhya and Mamaki. Above is Buddha Vajradhara, blue in color, within the hugging mudra, representing the union of method and wisdom. To his right, the right of Buddha Vajradhara, you see Buddha Maitreya, and to the left, Manjushri. To the right of Buddha Maitreya is Asanga, and to the left of Manjushri is Nagarjuna. These are the main masters from whom these lineages come. So today, if we go to see the line of transmission through which the teachings have come to us, there are three main lineages: the profound through Manjushri, and the extended through Maitreya. And this brings us to another point, another detail. Let's say it's maybe not too relevant at this moment. Buddha Shakyamuni left many teachings that were transcribed as sutras, and among the various sutras, there's a large part of the teachings are called the Sutras of the Perfection of Wisdom, where he talks about the path to enlightenment, giving emphasis on wisdom, the correct view of reality. And there are three versions. There's the long of 100,000 verses, the medium of 20,000, the short version of 8,000, and then the essential version that we recited today at the beginning, the Sutra of Essence, known as the Heart Sutra. So both lineages, so from Manjushri and Maitreya, both lineages that come from them, they commented the sutra of perfection. So Asanga, receiving from Manjushri Nagarjuna receiving from Manjushri and Asanga receiving from Maitreya, they commented. So we ask ourselves, what are our 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 point of reference for the correct view of reality would be these four versions. There's also the Diamond Sutra, which is a little bit more extended version of the Heart Sutra. It's called the Diamond Cutter, and Je Tsong Khapa, the Diamond Cutter Sutra. There are many different sutras that are shorter or a little bit longer. These are all sutras of the perfection of wisdom. So whatever it is, our lineage comes through these lines of transmission. So these are the two main ones. So when we visualize greatly, we have Buddha Shakyamuni, and looking towards Buddha Shakyamuni to our right is Manjushri and Nagarjuna around, and to the left we have Maitreya with Asanga around, and then with all the Buddhas of the lineage around each one, with all the details, all the scriptures that they wrote, etc., the commentaries, and in the middle there's Buddha Vajradhara surrounded by the 84 Mahasiddhas. These are these are masters who received tantric realizations, and then we visualize also our root guru surrounded by all these his masters, and so around these 5 thrones we have all the Buddhas, Yidams, Bodhisattvas, Dakas, Dakinas, Doctor of Dharma protectors, all the holy beings that are surround them. There's a very detailed description for each one of these. And the abbreviated one, we visualize one throne with Guru Buddha Vajradhara, which means this is in the aspect actually of Buddha Shakyamuni with Vajradhara at his heart or without. I mean, we can also just visualize Buddha Shakyamuni or at the heart Vajradhara and the syllable Hung at the heart of Vajradhara. But we imagine Buddha Shakyamuni who represents he's the essence of all the holy beings, who represents our root guru, who manifests himself in the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni, but is in essence all of the holy beings. Another detail that's good to know, that when we visualize our own guru, he's in the position of transmitting the Dharma. When I begin the teachings, and when people do teach, you can see also Chichen Rinpoche has this same mudra. The right hand represents the transmission of the Dharma. I'm transmitting, receive what I'm transmitting, and the left hand represents the meditation, which means put this into practice. So this mudra is, when one receives it, this means the right, from the right hand, receive the Dharma with the right attitude, and the left one is put it into practice. So we visualize Buddha Shakyamuni. What's most important in this moment is that the visualization is important to move something within us. So here there's a fundamental fundamental concept which I've already explained. I don't want to go into too many details right now. I don't know if I've explained it here within the context of the Lam Rim teachings. Maybe tomorrow we'll go into more details. But we talk about the commitment being and the wisdom being. Let me try to be brief. I'm going to use the same example as before. Let's look at the photo of Lama Caroline here on the throne. Many of you know her. When you see the photo of Lama Caroline, what does your mind connect with? With the photo or with Lama Caroline? Even when I just say her name, Lama Caroline, with her, with the person, the person is in and of herself is that just a physical body, or is there more? There's a lot more to a person. The essence, the person in essence is called the wisdom being. In this moment, we see each other, but what do we see? What comes to our eyes? The image of the body. We can maybe hear one's voice, and when we see a part of a being, it helps us connect to the whole being. For example, think about your father or your mother. Are you able to connect with them? I mean, and we can do that with anyone. Just say that person's name. In this case, mother and father, not even a specific name, but that makes us connect with that person, those people. But the actual person is the wisdom being. And the actual person transcends the body. So when we see a representation, the name that is the name that we hear, or the voice that we hear, or an image that we see, or maybe that one's scent, we naturally connect with that person, with the wisdom being. When I think about you, my mind connects with you. And so something happens, a communication comes. When I think about you, you perceive what I'm emanating, whether you're aware of it or not. There many studies done by Rupert Sheldrake, this English scientist. He did many interesting studies without getting into details, but he showed that dogs actually know when their forever people are coming home. So has it ever happened that you feel like you think about someone and then that person calls you, and according to him, his explanation is, before we call someone, we think about that person, and then we call, and then there we have this communication, mind to mind, that the one who's being called receives even before the call. So when we think about a being, we connect with that being, and the image that I visualize is a kind of bridge to connect me. So it's called the commitment being, which is a strange translation. It's samaya in Sanskrit. So the samaya being, samaya means commitment, but also means meeting point, a bridge. And in this case, samaya doesn't mean a commitment as a vow, but like as a meeting point, a kind of bridge of an encounter. So this samaya being is a bridge to help us connect with the actual wisdom being. It's like last week, some of you were in Milan. At the end, I remembered Lama Ganchen in a very particular moment for me. And that memory, that image, it made me connect naturally to something marvelous, with a deep feeling of love and gratitude. I mean, just think about someone that you love, or someone that you trust so much. Naturally, we connect with that feeling of trust and love, and and think about someone who has that you got very angry with. That the same is true. I mean, the more you think about the person, the more anger you'll feel, and that would bring us a negative feeling. That's the feeling that we have towards that person, that we feel. When we take refuge, we need faith. So when we imagine someone for whom we feel love and trust, real love and trust, that naturally generate that feeling. So that's why as we visualize, there are two different ways. So either in the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni or in the aspect of our actual root guru, or Lama Tsong Khapa, or as our guru, someone who, in seeing that being that connects us deeply, without, by bypassing any kind of conceptual thoughts, but it connects us directly with this feeling of great faith. The faith that exists between us now. I mean, the only reason why I'm here today, sincerely speaking, is because I have trust in you. I believe in you. I believe that you can receive what I'm transmitting and that you're able to put into practice what I transmit. Otherwise, why am I here? I'm really happy by myself in the mountains. I mean, I'm very happy to be here too. But the real reason why I'm here is because there's this reciprocal trust and faith. Like we go to the doctor, we need to have this reciprocal faith. I don't know if you've ever been to a doctor, who doesn't believe in your ability to get better. That happened to me once. I never went back to that doctor. So if you're able to connect, then naturally this faith will arise. So traditionally we visualize Buddha Shakyamuni because we start from the source. But if that feels too far, that you visualize the one that you have this profound and direct relationship, this faith. Like once I spoke to Lama Rinpoche many years ago, and I asked him the day that you won't be, the day that you won't be here anymore physically, should we make many small stupas? I said, no, most people don't understand what the stupa represents. No, make statues. And we're working on this. Okay, so I'll make statues, but how should these statues be? Like a Mahasiddha aspect or a Pandita. These are the two more with the yellow cap, like as a Pandita, like in the form we see at Tibetan Buddhism, or Mahasiddha with the Dorje and Bell and Damaru and other and Rinpoche said, no, neither of the two. You represent me the way I normally was. And he is absolutely right, because for most of us, the representation in a Pandita or Mahasiddha form, what does that mean for us? To most of us, it doesn't mean much. But those who knew Lama Ganchen, the way he was, and connecting to that naturally has an enormous power to help us, to connect us to that faith and trust. So all of this symbolism is to connect to is to connect to qualities. The yellow represents wisdom and morality. The hat that it has tipped at the top, or for example, or the eight lions under the throne. It means that one has overcome the 8 fears. The sun and the moon disc The moon disk represents love and compassion, and the sun disk represents wisdom. Normally they're sitting on that, and then a lotus flower underneath that represents purity, and then pure love for self and others. So either we learn that symbolism so that it really touches us and it talks to us, or it's and otherwise it doesn't mean anything. So little by little you can learn that symbolism, and meditate on being in the presence of the Buddha, inseparable from your guru. Ideally, we don't stay on the image as a image, but we should imagine being in the presence of. For me, what touches me most is when I imagine not the image of my guru, but his scent. He had a particular scent. Just remembering him, it makes me emotional. Very, very particular. And when we imagine and visualize, it's not about putting an image in front of us and then and take what's written in the book and make it like a tanka reproduction in front of us. We need to feel that we are in the presence of the Guru. This is imagining, visualizing, and when we're able to really do it, we can't. Something moves within us, and it's at that point that we take refuge. So, having this presence, and it should nourish us. The practice is like a circle goes around. I mean, the more I deepen this relationship with my spiritual guide, the deeper and the better I actually take refuge. So we're not just going round and round and going on the same points. It's like a spiral going up. So imagine being in the presence of Guru Buddha, the manifestation, the physical manifestation of all holy beings. That is in the aspect of our Guru, of our Buddha, and we imagine that we are actually in his or her presence. You can get into many details. We can imagine at the crown a white light that vibrates with the sound of Om. At the throat, a red light that vibrates with the sound of Ah. At the heart, a blue light that vibrates with the sound of Hum. Being each body, speech, and mind being completely pure. I mean, many details, but what's important is imagining really being in his presence. And here I invite you to be a little free with your creativity, because it's not a question of repeating, just reproducing the tanka in front of us and in our visualization. No, here we are in the physical presence of Guru Buddha. That manifestation that represents the union of all holy beings, all the Buddhas, all the realized beings, our own gurus. And this transcends Buddhism itself. When we talk about the union of all holy beings, they're all the holy beings that have ever manifested in any kind of context beyond Buddhism. We allow ourselves to be in that presence, and we ask, please, Guru Buddha, help me, guide me, transmit the Dharma to me in every way, adapting to my necessities and my capacities. And at this point, we recite Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Buddhaya. When we do the practice together, we recite one after the other. Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. And then Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Sanghaya. And then I take refuge in the Guru and the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Instead, if it's more extended practice, you can recite 100 times Namo Guru Bhye, and you connect with your own Guru. With that feeling of gratitude, that being in his presence, you connect with that feeling of reciprocal trust, faith, and love. We ask to be guided, ask to receive the blessings, to be guided, and you could just recite Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Guru Bhye, Namo. And as you recite, imagine that from Guru Buddha, light rays from his crown, throat, and heart, or maybe just from the heart, whatever is easier for you. And those light rays come towards us and they absorb into us from crown to crown, from throat to throat, from heart to heart. And those light rays transmit love and faith. We receive the guidance. We receive love and faith, mutual love and faith. And it's something that we manifest ourselves. And it's more intimate, more is deeper than a hug. And as we're reciting Namo Guru Bhye, we imagine these light rays that are coming to us. After a while, we can recite Namo Buddhaya, and we can see that so we ask. At the whole lineage, all the way up to Buddha Shakyamuni, we ask for help, which is not like do with me what you want. No, I rely on you. Please guide me, because let's remember the more sincere the request is, the more open we will be to receive what we are given. It's like trying to help someone who doesn't want to be helped. It's quite useless. If someone really wants to be helped, he'll receive so much. It's said that the blessings are a little bit like, I imagine, like a radio transmission or a radio transmitter that sends wavelengths with like music that goes to everyone. It's not that those waves go into these people and not to those. And then each one needs to know how to sync better to this asking for blessings and relying means syncing in the right way. And as we repeat, we're syncing, we're creating this connection to receive the blessings. Tomorrow, let's start by talking about what blessings are. We start Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Buddhaya. We imagine these light rays that come. Then when we recite Namo Dharmaya, we connect to taking refuge in the Dharma, in the teachings, remembering that the teachings are the vehicle. What I'm taking refuge in love for myself, love for others, taking refuge in the correct view of reality. And I'm also taking refuge in my ability to take this medicine. Because if I'm taking refuge in the medicine, I'm at the basis of that. I'm also taking refuge in my ability to have the positive effects from that medicine and to heal myself. And all these light rays absorb into me, and I connect with this gratitude. Then Namo Sangaya, we rely on Guru Buddha as a spiritual company. So Sangha, I guess, so Sangha is our spiritual community. So it's about being welcomed, being taken care of with affection. And along our spiritual path, it's individual because no one can do for us, but it's not a solitary path. We need to walk together with others. We need to support. We need support along this path, and it makes all the difference. Um, it's it's not for and then Buddha, it's not for nothing that Buddha said you take refuge in the one who transmitted to you the actual the medicine itself, and the ones who also support you. So we rely on the help. When we take refuge in the sangha, it's about walking together. And the guru is the personification of of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So so we recite Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. We imagine that these light rays they absorb into us from crown, throat, heart, and then also navel and secret chakra. So white, red, blue, yellow, and green. So one at a time, and then all together, and they gradually eliminate our negativities. They revitalize our qualities, similar to self-healing. But the most important part is as we're reciting and visualizing these these light rays, we're regenerating, we're cultivating these feelings of love and gratitude and faith. And so taking refuge is not simply reciting, I mean, Namo Guru Bhye, etc. That's a recitation, but the taking of refuge is something that happens deep within. It's true that there's some teachings where Buddha said, oh, what you think is not important, but what's important is what you recite. And then he said the opposite in other teachings. Okay, say, well, can you decide? I'll follow, but decide. For some of us, I mean, we can start by the recitation, because for some, if you say, like, right from the very beginning, you need to develop right from the beginning this deep profound mental state. Maybe one never even starts. So let's start by the recitation until then you're able to generate such a state. For others, right from the starting point, they can start with the generation of this mind as they recite. The taking of refuge is something that should be done quite frequently, because it's something that needs to be cultivated. There's a lot of competition. We take refuge in perfume. So many, so many things. We don't need to recite at all. We don't need to remind ourselves about the other things. And when we do the preliminary practices at the beginning, you can do a retreat just on the taking of refuge, where you can spend days on Namo Guru Bhye. And you can accumulate 100,000 in the Namo Guru Bhye, and then Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, and 100,000 times, and then 100,000 times 100 Sangha. It's not a magic number, 100,000. Okay, 100,000. Now next, it's an indication of a number that to allow us to have a deeper experience. Because if I recite Namo Guru Bhye over days, 100,000, you just can do it in a couple of days, actually. But I mean, the experience is much deeper. One can really go deeper. And if you've done, with 100,000 Namo Guru Bye with the right attitude, then it becomes really special, and you can move on to the others who are equally special. So we prepare our space, we prepare our altar, our offerings, we sit down, we prepare our body, we calm our mind through breathing exercises. We think. We go through the 4 questions of the 4 noble truths, like why we're here, and we visualize Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni, or our object of refuge, our guru, and we take refuge. We're developing deep love for ourselves. This is our main objective by doing this. The next part that we'll see tomorrow, and the part after that has to do with how to generate love for others. And here we have what should be recited, what should be recited, and what mind we should develop. These preliminary practices are not just at the beginning. Oh, I've been in the Dharma for 10 years. Oh, I don't need them. No. For me, it's hard sometimes to understand. Very often, we are much more attracted to the higher practices compared to the things that are considered fundamental. If we do a retreat on something very, elevated, we're particularly attracted to it. Instead, a retreat on one of the preliminary practices, maybe where there's less enthusiasm, but one doesn't take any away from the other. So I invite you to sit down and create familiarity with the 4 noble truths, and in the taking of refuge, familiarize yourself with being in the presence of Guru Buddha. If someone says it's hard for me to visualize, I don't think I don't think it's possible. I think everyone is able to visualize. Let's concentrate, for example, just a minute. Just breathe. Imagine in front of you a pizza. There's a pizza right in front of you. Imagine the measure, the size of the pizza. If you like, make your pizza the way you like it, with the cheese or then the sauce. You can. What about the heat? That's coming up from the pizza, and it's a little drier on the edges, and it's a little bit more cheesy in the middle, and the smell of all these ingredients, and as you cut it, the cheese that pulls back. I mean, you're able to visualize that, right? Because you're more familiarized with pizza than with the Buddha, and when you visualize the pizza, your mouth starts watering, right? It's the same thing. When you visualize Guru Buddha in front of you, emotions come because it touches us. When we imagine something, it's as if we were living it. Chemically, something moves within us and has a marvelous effect on us. So, try to imagine being in the presence of Guru Buddha. Your object of faith is Buddha Shakyamuni, your guru or Tara, who touches your heart. And if you don't have that yet, it needs to be cultivated, because afterwards that will follow us our entire path. And also at the moment of death, simply visualizing our object of faith like Buddha and taking refuge, that gives us certainty for a good rebirth, because it helps us we die and with a feeling of gratitude and love, and that just means everything. So this is important that we train and bring this to our everyday life. So I invite you to sit down and visualize, take refuge, meditate on the Four Noble Truths, what we said today. Do this practice. This afternoon, as I said before, I will not be able to be here because I will be translating for Tibetan Rinpoche. But I asked for an accumulation of mantras in here this afternoon, dedicated to the elimination of interferences. So it's something that I asked the whole Sangha to do, but in the end, only the monks were here present to do it. I prepared little booklets for everyone. Nobody came, so I said, okay, we'll do it afterwards. So today and tomorrow, we'll spend this time to recite this. We'll do this accumulation of mantras dedicated to the elimination of interferences. And I invite you to between now and the next teachings to do at least one time this meditation that we talked about today. You can do it here in the Gompa. Traditionally, it's said that once something is taught, before the next teaching, one needs to put that into practice at least 3 times. Now it's time for our dedications.
Ni de gem pa de sange shinto mikte ulwarki drokunam da shin che Parasho Je Tsong Khapa Nam Karatinle Chokchur Gepadang Losan Tempe Drume Sasumgi Drove Munsel Taktu Ne Gyurchi Yidama Guru Ratna Mindral Kam Niryata Yami Nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing Ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingi lob Kuncho sumki ngodrubut sol Kuncho sumki trashisho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the 3 jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Homahun Tembalame Sange Rinpoche, Kyobalame Tamcho Rinpoche, Trimbalame Gendo Rinpoche, Kyamne Kuncho Sumla Chopa. Buon appetito.
Have a good lunch. Thank you. A very practical request. In an hour and a half, I need to begin the translation that goes to midnight. Those who'd like to say hello quickly, please come. But really, let it be a quick hello.